The lights dim. A single spotlight finds Robert Plant on stage, larger than life. The roar of the crowd washes over him like waves against a rock, and yet in that moment his eyes hold a distant sadness, invisible to the audience. To the fans, he is a god of rock and roll, voice soaring like a fierce golden bird. But beneath the swagger and the screaming guitars, Robert carries ghosts, a silent memory of a son lost, a brother's laughter forever cut off, and a soul worn thin from decades of surviving when others could not. This is the story of a legend who conquered the world with song, and of the deep, private sorrows that never left him. He was born Robert Anthony Plant in 1948 in the industrial town of West Bromwich, a spare, lively boy among cinder blocks and northern coal dust. Even as a child, he was drawn to music. Elvis Presley on the family radio, the Beatles on TV, and the whispered poems of old folk ballads. By 16, he had dropped out of school to chase a different future. The thick ledgers of his father's garage were replaced with the weight of a microphone. He learned to sing in small local pubs and jazz clubs, skinning his voice on the rough edges of blues and R&B, shaking off shy boyhood for something wilder. In those dim basement venues, Robert's voice became a force beyond his years. A bit of Lancashire cheek, a pinch of outlaw fire, hinting already at the power that would shake stadiums one day. Backstage dreams turned reality in the summer of 1968 when a scruffy-suited guitarist named Jimmy Page invited Robert to join a new band. The Yardbirds had splintered, and Page, seeing something wild in Plant's golden eyes, asked him to sing. Robert answered the call. Along with drummer John Bonham, whom he had known from an earlier group called the Band of Joy, and bassist John Paul Jones, they lit the fuse of what would become Led Zeppelin. It all happened in a whirlwind. One moment Robert was a local club singer, the next he was part of rock history. Led Zeppelin released its debut album in January 1969, and it was as if the sky itself opened to their sound. Robert's voice, raw, high, and full-throated, became the thunder that carried their young, unfettered dreams.
Led Zeppelin stormed into the 1970s as more phenomenon than band. Stadiums packed beyond capacity, fans screaming every lyric, and floods of cameras capturing every wild gesture. Robert Plant had become the golden-throated frontman of a musical armada. One after another, the albums he recorded with his band, Led Zeppelin 1, 2, 3, and 4, shattered sales records. Stairway to Heaven emerged in 1971 as an epic anthem played on repeat around the world. On stage, he danced with ferocious joy, twirling a microphone like a sword, his voice straining to reach the heavens. Yet the success hid its own burdens. Relentless touring crisscrossing the globe, days of delirium and nights of exhaustion. Between the pyrotechnics and the adulation, Robert was already learning that fame was a double-edged sword, thrilling to wield but heavy to carry. All the while, he had another life away from the spotlight, a homebound life. In late 1968, he married Maureen Wilson, the girl from the neighborhood who had stuck by him since their school days. Just 2 weeks after their wedding in a crowded Birmingham hall, they welcomed their first child, a daughter named Carmen. A few years later came a second child, a son named Carrick Pendragon. For Robert, fatherhood brought something he had never fully tasted on stage. Tenderness, responsibility, a love not measured in decibels. He adored those children, winding Carmen's hair around his finger and singing her to sleep, whispering wonderings about the stars to little Carrick as he learned to toddle. But Led Zeppelin's machine showed no mercy. While Robert was out conquering the world, the late nights and jet lag tore at his family. He often found himself torn between two worlds, one that demanded every ounce of his voice and energy, and another that asked only that he simply be home for bedtime stories. That summer was one like any other. Long drives under the Mediterranean sun, laughter and music playing on the car radio. But fate had another plan. In August 1975, while vacationing on a rocky Greek hillside, Robert's family car careened out of control. In an instant, the bright air was replaced by searing pain. Metal crumpled, glass shattered. Robert and Maureen and their two small children were thrown into chaos. Sirens wailed in the distance, but Robert could only hear the thud of his own pounding heart. When he came to in the hospital, it was to a scene from a nightmare. Maureen's body lay broken on a stretcher, her skull and pelvis fractured, one leg in pieces, her temperature dangerously low. The doctors scrambled to save her. Urgent blood transfusions kept her alive. Robert's arms and legs were also bandaged. He could barely feel them through the agony. For a while, it felt like one long, endless scream of suffering. He could still draw a crowd, but the eyes of Robert Plant were different now. Kinder and tired, aware of how precious life could be. He carried guilt like a secret companion. Guilt that he had left his son too often. Guilt that the music they made together was now a closed chapter. Guilt that he was alive when others were not. Over the years, Robert would slowly emerge from the shadows of his past. He released album after album, sometimes rock, sometimes folk, always searching for peace. In 1993, he even co-wrote a song called I Believe for his album Fate of Nations, a further tribute to his lost Carrick. He rarely touched the old Led Zeppelin anthems at first, as if afraid that reliving those moments would crack open old wounds again. But the world was not done with Robert Plant. Each new performance reminded people that, scars and all, he was still vital and the same powerhouse vocalist at heart. He formed new bands, collaborated with others, from American bluegrass with Alison Krauss to world fusion projects, anything to expand beyond the name he had grown too large under. Yet even as he sang to crowds as big as ever, a quiet tension hummed beneath the surface. Every footstep was followed by the echoes of a path he once walked, and every cheer reminded him of those who could no longer join in. Today, Robert Plant still stands on stages around the world, but the stories he sings have changed. There's a wrinkle in his laughter and a distant gleam in his eyes that weren't there in his youth. He once confessed that every now and then he still hears Carrick's voice. If not in a dream, then in a lyric or a sunrise. His legacy is enormous. The rock world venerates his name. But the man himself knows what they do not see, the hollow in his heart that success could not fill. He carries a weight that no audience can lift. Memories of a child who should have grown old, a bandmate taken too early, and a life that spun so far beyond the ordinary that it broke more than it built. Even as he joins in the modern world, raising grandchildren, tending quiet passions, and occasionally chuckling at life's absurdities, the scars remain. Whenever the guitar echo fades and silence takes him, Robert is left alone with the memories of innocence lost. In the end, he still wonders sometimes about the boy he lost, the friends he said goodbye to, and the decades that followed where nothing would ever sound quite the same. And yet he sings on because this is his story now, the only way he knows to keep hope alive in the face of unimaginable sorrow.